Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, today I'm going to take a look at this new little mini or micro drone, whatever you want to call it. It's very, very small, from Holyton. This is the HT02. As you can see, the drone fits right inside the carrying case. Really neat and portable. These kind of drones are very popular. 4 or 5 years ago, a lot, the Cheerson CX10s and little one, they were smaller than this, but this is still very, very small, and this will be very fun to fly. No camera, nothing fancy. Altitude hold is about as fancy as it gets, but this will be fun to fly in your house on a rainy day, and there's no sense to worry about a camera on some little toy drone like that. So let's take a look at the drone, and there it is inside the little display case, and of course inside the controller. This is going to be a quick review here as we just take a look at it. I'm not going to do any, just to let you guys know, if you subscribe to the channel, we won't be messing with any table reviews on these toy drones anymore because nobody watches them. You just want to see what the drone has quickly, and then we'll get it up in the air so you can fly it. So again, pretty neat. Now I would probably pop this a little display case window on the top off when you're going to fly if it bothers you, because it sort of like bumps into your thumbs and stuff, but yeah, I think it'll be a little easier if you do pop that on and off, and leave it off all the time if you don't plan on keeping the drone inside of there. Real quickly, before we go over the controls, I'll show you what all comes with the drone. They give you 2 chargers, so that's pretty cool, and they give you 3 batteries. Here are the batteries. They give you 2 in Ziploc bags, and then they give you the third one that actually is in the drone, but they only give you 2 chargers. These are 220 milliamp hour LiPos. They take, so just 1S, very tiny, very common battery again in these side drones. And it takes about 30 minutes to charge those up with these included chargers. Your Phillips screwdriver, little prop removal tool here. And then they give you this, what looks like these black wires. You can make it out in the bag. There may be a lot of reflection here, but these are prop guards. They go over like a kind of a canopy. I don't know how else to say it. Like it, you put it and make an X pattern, and it goes diagonally across the top of the drone to make sort of a collision prop guard system. And you just need to pop those on. I'm not going to mess with them, but that will slightly reduce your flight time, because every little bit of weight counts on these drones. But it will help to keep you from busting the drone or props a little bit, when you're flying inside. So let's quickly go over the controls, and I'll just look at the control manual here, manual, because there are quite a bit here of controls. Of course, it is altitude hold, and you know that because the stick centers, your power button is up here on the top, and the right is your trim. So your roll trim's left and right, your pitch trim is forward and back. So if the drone is drifting forward, you want to give it reverse trim. If you're drifting reverse, go forward. Opposite direction. If you're going right, trim it left, you trim it right. But over here on this side, this actually has some other functions here. If you press up on this left button, it's going to do your auto takeoff and your auto landing. Left on this will do an emergency stop. If you're going to crash, you can kill the motors. If you press right on it, that's going to put you in what they call headless mode. If you're a beginner, that's so you don't have to worry about orientation. That's a kind of a cheat mode, I guess you could say. And that mode I don't ever use and don't recommend that you do, because you don't learn how to fly. And if you hold that right button on here for like a second, it will enter you in one key return, like your poor man's return to home. It will just simply fly backwards in the opposite, backwards or opposite direction that it was facing at takeoff. So, if you fly forward from you, it's going to fly backwards. If you fly behind you, it's just going to fly farther away. So it's not very good, and it's something you should not rely on. And if you press down, that is going to be your gyro calibration. So rather than have to do some, both sticks down and right or something like a lot of drones do, just press that down. The lights will probably flash on the drone. I haven't done it yet. And that's just to set the gyro so it knows what level. So make sure you're on a level surface when you do that. After a crash, if the drone starts tilting or drifting, rather than trimming it, land it and calibrate the gyro first. That way, sometimes it can get messed up during a crash. It takes 3 AAA batteries back here, and that should be all you need to know. So let me stop the video. I'm going to reposition my tripod, and we'll fly it around here in the basement, see how this little guy performs. So I'll be right back. All right, guys, so I have the drone powered up, and you can see, well, look at that bright white spotlight on the front, where some drones have a camera in it. This is a little white LED, and you have your red in the rear and your blue LEDs in the front. Now, if you're getting ready to take off and this drone is slowly flashing all the time, that tells you you're in headless mode. When I was flying this a while ago, I didn't realize why it was doing that. Like, what's going on? And I must have bumped that right button on the controller, and it was in headless mode, and you're gonna crash a whole lot if you're in headless mode and you don't know that you are in headless mode on this little guy. So let me grab the controller. I do have that that plastic glass looking cover on still. I can fly with it on because, you know, I got quite a bit of experience, but again, it's probably a good idea to take that off if you are new to flying drones. And one other thing is I did not mention when I did a quick overview a moment ago what happens when you press in on both of the control sticks. Your left, if you press in, is going to cycle you through your speed rate. You have 1, now 2, that's your middle rate, and that's your high rate. I'm going to start out in the lowest rate, but it's very, very slow in terms of its movement forward and back, and the yaw, which is spinning like a top, that's your yaw. That's very, very slow as well. And pressing on the right stick will beep, and that's going to enter you into 360 flip mode, and then you press the direction you want the drone to flip, and it will execute a 360 flip. So that's pretty much it on this guy. Now, one thing I noticed when I did the test flight a while ago is it takes off, whether it's auto takeoff or you just give it throttle, it'll fire the props, and then you give it throttle again, it'll take off, or you can use the auto takeoff. Either way, the drone darts to the ceiling. So if you're in a place, if you're flying indoors, which you typically will be with this drone, and it's a very low ceiling, you're going to crash into it. Even this, which is probably around 7.5, 8 feet high, I'm not sure exactly, it's very close to the ceiling. So if I crash because of that, unfortunately, there's not much you can do. The altitude hold on this drone doesn't work the best. So let's go ahead and give it the auto takeoff. And it darted up. Now, it wasn't quite as bad there, but it's still trying to rise on me. It's like it takes it a moment for the altitude hold to really want to work right. And now it's kind of wanting to sink. You can see I keep giving it a throttle. Look, it keeps. As we fly for a little while, it'll start to get a little better. Like it just constantly is dropping. Altitude hold drone should maintain altitude. Now, if I keep giving a little bit of throttle, then I can keep it in the air. But watch, if I let it go, like it keeps dropping. When I first took off earlier, I thought, gee, is the battery, you know, low, and that's why it's flashing. But so there is the lowest rate, and you can see the yaw is very, very slow. So just to do one rotation on the yaw, it is very slow. Look at that. If you have any drift at all, it's going to crash on you before you get a rotation done. Let's go press in, and now we're in the middle rate. Much better yaw. And that's going to be a good rate for most people with a little experience to fly in. In fact, if you're a beginner, you may actually do worse in the low rate just because it's so slow that you may not have time to recover because of that slow yaw. And let's bring it back here, and let's go into the highest rate. 3 beeps, look, much quicker yaw. And I'll probably fly in this mode. The second rate wouldn't be too bad either. So as I flip it around, I know I'm in the correct mode because as I press forward, it comes towards us and back is away. I kept pressing forward, and the drone would then go backwards because headless mode is going to move the direction that you press the right stick. And that's easier for a beginner, but someone like myself with experience, it's not, especially when you don't know that you're in it. All right, let's do some of those 360 flips. So I'm going to get down a little bit because it's going to rise up quite a bit. We're going to press in and forward, and there it flips. And to the right, and to the left. Yeah, it's flying real nice. If you do crash it, then you'll just land it and then press down on the left little D-pad, or whatever you want to call that, and do that gyro calibration. And it wouldn't hurt to do it right when you first power the drone up, but you can see we're doing just fine here. It's actually flying pretty good. When I was originally flying, I thought, man, this thing is really going to be hard to recommend. And that's because I was in headless mode, so every time I got turned around, everything was messed up, and it was all of a sudden like, oh yeah, I gotta be in headless mode. You shouldn't go backwards when I press forwards. So yeah. Actually not a bad little drone. I think the biggest complaint would be that it tends to just gain a ton of altitude whenever you do a takeoff. Let's go ahead and press down. Let's see if it'll go down and to do the, sorry, not down, up. There we go. Pressing down was a gyro calibration. You can't do that in the air. A lot of those drones, what they'll do is a lot of them they'll have the up, pressing up will take off and pressing down will land, but no, pressing up is both on this drone. So out of habit, I'm pressing down. So again, that gyro calibration, you just press. See, that's where it's easy now. I think I've entered into headless mode. See, that's, I don't know if you guys can see. Now, this is probably what happened a while ago. We got slow flashing lights here. Let's make sure that we're in the field of view here. That is coming in headless mode, and that is easy to do because this little pad is not very accurate. So let's go ahead and press right on it again and see if I can end that. And now it stopped flashing. We don't want to be in headless mode. But a gyro calibrate, you're going to press down here, and now we got the quick and then really quick flashing, and we know the gyro's been calibrated. Let's go ahead and just do an auto takeoff. So I'm going to give it throttle once. That starts the props, and you give it throttle again. Now immediately I'm holding down, and look, it's easy now. That's to stop it from trying to go up and slam into the ceiling. As you can see, not been flying a while. It's getting a little more settled down, but now it is still starting to drop on me a bit. But it's pretty sporty. In this little area, it's hard to really open it up. It'd be better if I had a little more room. But yeah, it's pretty darn sporty. I don't feel confident enough to try to do funnels here. It's so little nimble and quick that I'm pretty with the way that it doesn't want to hold altitude. I'm afraid I'll just crash into something. Let's go to the second rate and see. That might be a little better because it won't get away from me as easily. Yeah, I think second rate's going to be your ideal rate in a more confined area, as long as you have some flight experience. See, now I can do some small circles. Whoa! Oh, clipped my chair over there. And then when it does crash, the lights will flash a little bit. Let's see if they settle down after I set it down. If it doesn't, then it probably wants you to do that gyro calibration. Let's see if that. And now we're good to go. So I think it's kind of wanting you to do that so that you know it's going to fly right. And let's go ahead and do that auto takeoff again. But yeah, I think the second rate, it gives you, so I still, even with 7 years of experience, a little drone like this, you're going to crash it. And that's where that sort of canopy style prop guard would be good, not only from banging into the ceiling, but help somewhat protect the props, but it's not going to protect them as good as actual little individual prop guards that some of these drones use. On these, these little, I've seen some of them will have little bitty prop guards on each arm. And it seems to have a pretty good flight time. When I was testing it earlier, I went ahead and just recharged the same battery because it wasn't dead. They do give you 3. I don't know how long I flew it, but it was not flashing at low battery. It was flashing because I was in, like I said, headless mode. That little white light, that's a really good idea that Holyton did there, because that's really easy to see. If you're gonna just look at the red and blue lights, I can see them. Depending on how high I am or low, they're easier to see it, if not, depending on your height as well. Depending on how tall you are. But it's not great for orientation. Maybe if you're flying in a really dark room. When I flip it around though and I see that light, now I know that I'm facing towards me. Now that flashing light is telling us now that we are in low battery state. And one way you can confirm that is if you go to do a flip. See, I did the flip, it won't flip. That's deactivated because the battery's getting low voltage. It's losing its punch. If it tried to flip, it's not going to be able to provide the current to the motors, and then you're probably going to crash it. It's going to do a really sloppy 360 flip, or it may not even be able to execute it. It may go up halfway tilt and then fall to the ground. So all the drones disable that once it gets to the low voltage status. These LiPos, they can only get so low before you can damage the battery, so they cut the voltage off, and and it will just land itself here as soon as it gets too low, so that you don't run the battery completely dead, which would, like I said, ruin these LiPos. LiPos are very sensitive to the voltage that the battery's kept at. Yeah, overall, this is not a bad little drone. Much better than my first impressions, because that was my fault. Though that, again, the design of this button here, being not very accurate, just be mindful if you're doing anytime you're doing the auto takeoff or the gyro calibration, those are the two most likely you're going to do. You could use an emergency stop, but you may bump the headless mode and enter into it, and if that happens, you'll know it with the flashing lights. You need to press right again really quickly and exit out of it. You can do that while you're flying or if you land it. A lot of drones, what they'll do is they will put the headless mode as a long press on the drone, which on this drone it was a short press. That way you don't accidentally do it. And then we're gonna land on top of a rock. Yeah, that way a long press would keep you from accidentally entering the headless mode. That is one thing that they should have not done in this. They should have made it a long press, or if the controller was different, you would put the headless mode onto a separate button all to itself. All right, guys, that wraps up the review for the Holyton HT02. If you're new to the channel and you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. And let me know down in the comments if there's anything you think about this drone, or anything that you'd like to know, or anything I should do different. Like, I don't typically do them quite this style, but you know, this is the best way to review one of these drones. And you know, if you want a table review and you enjoy that aspect, let me know that as well. I just think that a quick overview on these little toys are better, because unfortunately I've found from doing this for 6 years that most of you guys don't want to see a table review, especially for a toy. You just want to see how it flies. All right, guys, that wraps up the review. If you're new to the channel, like I said, please consider subscribing. While you're at it, click that bell that you see on YouTube. That way you get notified every time that I do upload a new video. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.
The power of the dark side.